So you're looking to buy a home in BC, but you don't know where to get started. Well, the good news for you is that you're in the right place. Stick around to hear about the 10 steps to buying a home. Step number 1 is to get a mortgage pre-approval. This can be done by visiting a bank or speaking with a mortgage broker. I would personally suggest a mortgage broker most of the time. However, the reason for this will be explained in a later video. Getting pre-approved is going to determine what size mortgage you can qualify for, and thus what price properties you should be looking at. It's also going to give you an estimate of your monthly mortgage payments. You also have the ability to lock in an interest rate for 90 to 120 days. If rates are to go up during this time period, you're given the rate that you locked in at, and if rates are to go down, you're honored with that lower rate. The reason why it's so important to get pre-approved before searching for homes is because you don't want to be looking at homes that are outside your price range. Then you're not only wasting your own time, you're wasting your agent's time, and you're wasting the seller and the selling agent's time. Additionally, if you're in a fast-paced market, you want to make sure that you got all your ducks in a row before going out and searching for homes. Having this pre-approval is probably going to let you have a shorter subject removal period, which we'll speak about later, but this is going to make you more competitive against other buyers. Once you've gotten your pre-approval in place, then it's time to select a realtor. You're going to want to choose someone that you like and trust and that has local market expertise in the market that you're looking in. You want someone who's actually going to educate you and not just tell you what to do. It's often a good idea to interview multiple realtors before you decide on one that you want to work with. And keep in mind that there's no cost to a buyer when working with a buying agent. The seller actually pays for the buying realtor's commission. It's also important that you set expectations with one another and make sure you have an open line of communication throughout the process. We will then move on to step 3, which is creating a wish list. So now we get to the fun part. You need to figure out what your wants are and what your needs are. So what's negotiable and what's non-negotiable? The most obvious factors to determine here are things such as location, price, size, number of bedrooms, and number of bathrooms. Based on your locations of interest, it's important to set expectations for what's available in the price range you can afford. Some people will have a lot better of an idea of what exactly it is that they want from the start, where others will have to start more broad and tailor it as they go. Your realtor is going to be able to help you refine this list and give you expectations of what's going to be available for you. A tip here is to ask your realtor what the most important features of a property are for resale value. This is especially important if you're buying an entry-level home that you plan to sell in the future and move on to a bigger property. Then on to step 4, you're going to actually start your home search. This is typically going to start online with yourself looking for properties and your realtor sending you properties as well. Some people like to be more proactive and they have a lot more time than others, so they may be doing a lot of the searching on their own, while others are going to utilize their realtor to make sure they're always on top of properties as they hit the market on a daily basis. Once you've chosen a handful of properties that you found online, your realtor will then start to book showings for you. Some of the best websites to search for homes on your own are realtor.ca, REW.ca, and if your realtor is sending you properties, they'll be sending it from the MLS. My personal favorite website for searching for properties is actually my own. The reason being, it gives you realtor level access to all the properties on the market with the ability to save searches, have them sent to yourself automatically, and collaborate with your agent, which would be me. With all the tools and resources out there online these days, it's important to do your due diligence so you don't waste time viewing properties that you could have filtered out prior to actually going. But once you have selected that handful of properties that you want to go out and see, now it's time to move on to the next step and your realtor will take you out to see properties. So step number 5 is to actually go and view properties in person. The best way to go about doing this is for your realtor to set up a buyer's tour for you. This means you're going to go out and see multiple properties on the same day back to back to back. Now, if there aren't multiple properties that you want to see, or there's only one that's come up that you want to go out and see immediately, they'll set up a private appointment. During these times, your realtor is going to accommodate you to the property. Sometimes the listing realtor will be there, sometimes it'll be on lockbox, and sometimes the homeowner or the tenant will be there. It varies all the time. It's important that while you're viewing these homes, you try to keep your emotions at bay. You don't want to show too much excitement, and you also don't want to show too much disgust. Once you finish touring the property, you can then discuss with your agent outside where you can have some privacy. You should also keep in mind that there could potentially be cameras or microphones in every home that you go into, so always assume that there are and you'll be safe. Another key point is to take notes as soon as you're in the property and right after you've left. If you're going out and seeing 4, 5, 6 properties, let's just say they're all condos, a lot of times you're going to start to get mixed up on which was which one, which had the master bedroom in this area, which one was facing the highway, and things of that nature. The more detailed notes you take, the better, because then when you go back to review them, you'll be able to make a better decision. So once you've gone out and seen properties, and now you found one that you've fallen in love with, It's time to make an offer, and that's step number 6. Writing an offer is more than just writing a price on a piece of paper. There's other important aspects of it, such as the dates and the subjects and conditions. Subjects and conditions are put into an offer to protect you, the buyer. However, the less subjects and conditions there are, the more attractive the offer is going to be to the seller. So if there's any sort of due diligence you can do up front to remove more subjects prior to writing the offer, that's what you always want to do. This is extremely important when you're in a multiple offer situation. More often than not, less subjects can actually have a greater impact than a higher price. To an extent, of course. You're also going to include inclusions and exclusions. So when you're purchasing a property, all the appliances typically stay in the home unless the seller specifically requests that they want to keep some of them. Also, all blinds and window coverings are typically left as well. If there's anything else you noticed in the home that you're interested in keeping when you purchase it, you can also write those in. However, both the buyer and seller have to agree on this. Once you've written your offer, the seller then has 3 options. They can accept it, they can decline it, or they can counteroffer. If the seller decides to counteroffer you, they're going to return the original contract to you with certain things crossed out and initialed. You're then going to have the same 3 options that they had. You can accept it, you can decline it, or you can counteroffer back. Once these negotiations have settled and everything's signed up, you now have an accepted offer. On to step number 7, subject removal. So as previously mentioned, in your offer, you're going to have certain subjects. These are typically things such as financing, home inspection, and getting insurance at a reasonable rate. You'll typically have somewhere between 5 and 10 days to remove these subjects. Essentially, this is your period of due diligence to make sure you're confident in moving forward with the property and it checks off all the boxes. The primary purpose behind getting a home inspection is to ensure that there's no hidden issues with the home that could cost you down the road. This is something that I always suggest to my buyers. If there are any major issues or concerns that do come up during the home inspection, you can always go back to the seller and ask them for a rebate or for them to fix those issues. However, the seller doesn't have to agree. It's then up to you whether you want to remove subjects or not. If you do eventually choose to remove subjects, it's at this point in time where you're going to have to submit your deposit. This is submitted in the way of a bank draft and is typically 5% of the purchase price. Your deposit also forms part or all of your down payment depending on the size of it, and it's held by the buying agent's brokerage and trust until completion. Essentially, it's money paid in good faith by the buyer to ensure that they're going to complete on the deal. If for some reason they're not able to complete on the purchase or they flee town, the seller is typically entitled to keeping it. So once the subjects have been removed and the deposit has been provided, congratulations, you have a firm deal. The next step is to hire a lawyer or notary. They play an important role in finalizing your purchase. Their job is to prepare documents for transferring ownership of property, as well as money from your lender to the seller. They will also prepare something known as a statement of adjustments. This is where all the financials are outlined, and if there's any adjustments such as strata fees or taxes, it will be dealt with here. Something that you may want to keep in mind here is that a notary is often cheaper than a lawyer. However, if any legal complications arise, a lawyer can represent you in court, whereas a notary cannot. Typically, you're going to have a meeting with your lawyer from a couple days to a week prior to completion. It's at this time that you'll finalize all documentation on your new home. You'll also be required to bring the remainder of your down payment during this time. Once you've finalized all the details with your notary or lawyer, we now move on to completion date. This is when the actual transfer of funds occurs. Completion date is typically 1 to 4 days prior to possession. The reason being is that if you're buying and selling a property, you need some time in between to allow the lawyers to do their duties. And you want to leave them enough time so that they're not rushed to transfer the funds. It's at this time that your closing costs will be due as well. I typically suggest having between 1.5 and 4% for closing costs. This number is going to vary depending on things such as if you're a first-time homebuyer and the price of your home. Some of your closing costs are going to be things such as property transfer tax, GST if it's a new build, and legal fees for your lawyer or notary. It's important to plan for these fees early on so that you're not surprised at the end of the transaction. It's then on to the next and final step, possession date. Congratulations! This is the day that you've been waiting for. You're going to want to make sure that you've made arrangements with a moving company ahead of time, and you're also going to want to make sure you've spoken with strata management if it's a strata property. You're also going to want to switch over your services such as gas and electricity, or start a new account if this is your first home. You're going to have a lot of people to inform about your new address such as banks, credit card companies, subscriptions, and any memberships or clubs that you're a part of. You're also going to want to inform your place of employment and the CRA. Don't forget to inform schools, dentists, doctors, and anyone else of that nature. And be sure to change your driver's license address. Another key tip to keep in mind is that you should forward your mail from your previous address. I suggest doing this for at least 3 to 6 months, but you can do this for up to a year. And that about wraps it up for this video. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding of the buying process, and if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you did find any value from this video, please hit the thumbs up below and subscribe to this channel if you're interested in future real estate content in the Lower Mainland. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.